We're using the absolute worst exotic in the Division 2. The Merciless.
This gun is lightweight, there's no sight. I want my money back.
But we discovered a 3-part formula to cracking the Merciless code for the best possible build. And now the Merciless actually feels amazing. Can you believe it?
In the quiet words of the Virgin Mary, come again.
Today we're going to show you how to make the build that will give you the highest damage with the best possible weapon handling for the Merciless. When you look at the Merciless, you're probably like, yeah, look at this badass gun. 500% amp damage, 500% weapon damage and explosions. What can beat that? Let's blow shit up, then go eat some meat.
You had me at Meat Tornado.
Then you pull the trigger.
Hey, wait a minute, am I being punked? Where's Ashton? Oh my god!
Listen to how it sounds. The enemy is more likely to call it cute than actually fear it. But here's the real joke. Hitting a target that's standing directly in front of you. You'll be convinced the devs are screwing with you.
Are you taking the piss?
I mean, what is it going to take? And when you finally get your stacks,
there we go. You fucking happy? Come on.
I might be impressed if the enemies weren't giggling at it so much.
You can't die from knife design, can you?
If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me to make a Merciless build,
I like saying no. It lowers their enthusiasm.
and I blame this guy. I'll see you in the DZ identity. I don't think he meant to. So I took the Merciless to my build lab on Twitch where me and a bunch of banditos broke the Merciless code.
Do you know what you're doing?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I do.
The build formula for the Merciless accounts for handling, power, and survivability.
By the way, why are we wearing bras on our heads?
Ceremonial.
Handling most of all, because if you can't land a shot, what else matters? So that's where we started. The problem with the Merciless is that with continuous fire, the barrel goes up and up and up. Because of this, most users unfortunately overspec weapon handling for the Merciless,
Don't do that.
which in turn weakens the weapon. And power is the second most critical component of the Merciless code. Adding brace gives 45% weapon handling. But the chest piece has one of three very critical components to adding damage to a build. So if you run braced and a Merciless, you're actually down 2 out of 3 damage talent slots. The other slot lost is the weapon talent slot. That's because the weapons talent binary trigger only buffs the 14th round once you achieve all 7 stacks, and only then do you get that explosion too. And the 500% amp damage and 500% weapon damage is based on the damage you load on your build. So weak build, weak binary trigger.
Fuck me.
Which is why you only want to add as much weapon handling to this build as you absolutely need. And braced adds way more handling than the weapon needs. 3 pieces of striker weakens the weapon and the build too. The Merciless has a 400 RPM. That makes it the second fastest rifle in the game. So adding more RPMs isn't going to fix the problem. It's actually going to make it worse. That's because for a semi-automatic, to get the most out of those added RPMs, you have to span a trigger.
Let me tell you something, Pandeo. I'll stick it up your ass and pull the fucking trigger till it goes click.
Which means the rifle's barrel is going to take a walk to the sky. Which is why, understandably, that this setup is often paired up with braced too.
Don't do that.
Which now means you're not only missing the 2 critical damage talents, but you're also down damage attribute slots the weapon so desperately needs. The attributes on the weapon are rifle damage, crit damage, and crit chance. We typically prefer damage to targets out of cover instead of crit chance here. 1, it's multiplicative damage and leads to more overall damage output. 2, crit chance can be acquired in a number of ways, where damage to targets out of cover can only be added to a build via the weapon and these knee pads. Look at the mods: 10% accuracy, 10% stability, 10% reload, and 10% handling. Since handling encompasses everything, the Merciless already has 20% accuracy and 20% stability on it. And those mods are in places we'd otherwise prefer crits, which means, again, we're down more damage. Also, I gotta say, any weapon with 90% weapon handling is going to feel like a laser. To break the Merciless code, you first must try to get inside the devs' heads. First, they gave us one of the fastest rifles in the game. Second, they chose to give us crit attributes. Third, they classified the explosion damage as weapon damage. Lastly, 20% weapon accuracy and stability is already a lot on any weapon. Before I give you the secret to breaking the Merciless code, I got to thank the community of Bandidos who participated in the build lab on Twitch. If it wasn't for your help, we might have overlooked this elegantly simple yet powerful way of making the Merciless handle like a dream. After hours of testing and with many combinations, we found that the single most important thing to add to a Merciless build was the sharpshooter specialization, thanks to breathe control. It's the only thing in the Division 2 that gives you 15% weapon stability, reduced recoil, and faster reacquisition of targets. With this, we only had to add a single weapon handling attribute of 8% to the build, and that gives us 53% total stability, and it works out of cover, unlike Braced. However, the Merciless is unique because it has a binary trigger and an explosion that actually staggers the user's sights. You will land more shots firing 4 to 6 bursts, which is actually 8 to 12 rounds. This is enough to stagger the enemy and increase the number of explosions you achieve during an engagement. Also, targeting is most accurate between 15 and 35 meters. You Bandidos prefer to receive the strongest build for the Merciless, and that just happens to be my favorite build too. With this setup, you will be critting over 1.54 million, with the binary trigger delivering between 10 and 12 million combined damage. Since we don't need Brace on this build to beam foes in the forehead, I chose Glass Cannon. Obliterate was always decaying, and Spotter requires us to run a skill we don't have the tiers for. Perfect Glass Cannon would most likely achieve higher damage, but it wasn't worth the cost of taking in more inbound damage. The Fox's Prayers knee pads are best in slot for this build. 1, because it's a rifle. 2, because it's a rifle. More importantly, we're missing the damage to targets out of cover or any other multiplicative damage type we'd otherwise have on the rifle, making the damage to targets out of cover on the knee pads absolutely vital. And since all weapon mods that we usually roll to crits are dedicated to weapon handling, there is no better exotic gear piece for this weapon's build than the Coyote's Mask. This allows us to reassign some of the crit chance attributes to crit damage, since it gives us crit bonuses at ranges over 15 meters, which is where this rifle lives. With this mask, we have 57% crit chance and 207% crit damage. We also have 8% damage to armor, which is from the contractor's gloves we have on the build. The holster is improvised with max crits and has our single weapon handling attribute on it. If you don't have these, go ahead and run Walker and Harris here instead. The backpack is Grupo and the talent is Vigilance for 25% more weapon damage. If you heard that the Merciless damage can be increased by explosive damage being added to the build, that's true-ish. But let me save you some time trying to go down that route.
Where's my explosion?
If you test this yourself, you will see that explosive damage will affect the binary trigger, but not by a very exciting amount.
All I want is an explosion, a little tiny explosion.
In any case, once you understand this weapon, you will realize that's a moot point, because this is a crit weapon intended for a crit build that needs every round of a very small mag to deplete the enemy's strength to the point in which the explosion can actually kill them.
No, I'm in control!
Anything you allocate to explosive damage will lower your crit damage, and the crit damage is the damage type you are far more regularly dealing. So speccing into explosive damage is sort of backwards.
Don't go chasing water.
Look at it this way, putting out 13 shots with this build will result in 8 shots critting at 1.54 million. That's roughly a total of 12.3 million in crit damage. The binary trigger damage is about 12.3 million also. Together, that's 24.6 million. This build with max explosive damage crits at 993,000. That's 548,000 less per crit and already puts it under our build by 4.4 million. The explosive damage added to the build never makes up for the lost crit damage, and as the build continues to fire, the hole it's digging just gets deeper.
Always know if the juice is worth the squeeze.
The juice is not worth the squeeze. But hey, don't listen to me. The devs only wrote that right into the weapon's details. So now that we've broken the Merciless code and shared it with you, you can use this build exactly as it is.
You try?
or tinker with it to add more survivability if you prefer. For me, I like this build all red.
Fun. That's your idea of fun, huh?
Because a fast time to kill is survivability. But if you want more armor, armor on kill, or armor regen, the world is your oyster. A super 90s shotgun with an 8x scope is certifiably insane, and it absolutely wrecks. Brought to you by Men with a Mustache.
A mustache, if you've only got a mustache.
Tuxedo out.